What if I told you that hidden in plain sight, scattered across ancient libraries, private collections, and even digital archives, are books so dangerous that their mere possession once carried the death penalty? Books that don't just contain knowledge, they contain power. Raw, unfiltered power that has toppled kingdoms, shattered minds, and opened doorways between worlds that some say should never have been open. These aren't legends. These aren't myths. These are grimoires. And what I'm about to reveal will forever change how you see the hidden forces shaping our reality. Ask yourself, why would rulers burn libraries? Why would priests risk eternal damnation? Why would scholars tremble at turning a single page? Because they knew these texts weren't stories. They were instructions. Greetings, seekers of ancient wisdom. Tonight, we descend into the shadows of human history to uncover the most feared, coveted, and misunderstood texts ever written. Books that medieval kings banned under penalty of death, that the Vatican locked away in secret archives, that modern scholars approach with trembling hands, knowing that some knowledge carries a price. By the time our journey ends, you'll understand why these forbidden texts have secretly influenced every major civilization, why they're hidden in the private libraries of world leaders, and why the techniques they contain are being used on you right now in ways. But here's what they never tell you in universities, what the establishment desperately wants to keep buried. A grimoire isn't just a book. It's a weapon, a sophisticated technology designed to hack reality itself, to bend the unseen forces that govern our world to human will. And unlike the myths and fairy tales they feed us, these actually work. That's why they're still feared. That's why they're still hidden. And that's why what I'm about to share has been kept from the masses for over 1,000 years. And every weapon comes with a price. Some paid in blood, some in sanity, some in entire civilizations that rose and fell on the whispers of these forbidden pages. The word grimoire comes from the old French grammaire, but not grammar as we understand it today. This was the grammar of creation itself, the syntax of spirits, the linguistic code that ancient masters used to reprogram the fundamental structure of reality. Think about the implications. What if certain combinations of words, symbols, and intentions weren't just communication, but literal acts of creation and destruction? Let's go deeper into the forbidden origins. The first grimoires emerged from the dying embers of Rome, when the old mystery schools went underground and their secrets merged with early Christian mysticism. But here's where the official history becomes a lie. These texts didn't appear randomly. They manifested at specific power nexuses, ancient temples where the veil between worlds was already thin, places where reality itself was more malleable. The papyri Graeci, magicae, Greek magical papyri, discovered in the Egyptian desert, dating back to the 2nd century. These weren't primitive superstitions. They were operational manuals containing precise instructions for consciousness manipulation, spirit binding, and reality alteration. The Roman authorities didn't ban these texts because they were fake. They banned them because they worked too well, because they were creating a class of individuals who could influence minds, predict events, and manipulate the fabric of existence itself. But here's the darkest secret. The early church didn't just condemn these practices. They absorbed them, stole them. The same techniques that summoned demons in pagan temples became the foundation for divine visions in Christian monasteries. The only difference was the marketing. Angels instead of demons. Prayer instead of incantation, but the underlying technology. Identical. When we examine the golden age of grimoire creation, the 12th through 16th centuries, we discover something extraordinary. Islamic scholars hadn't just translated ancient Greek, Egyptian, and Persian magical texts. They had perfected them, created increasingly sophisticated systems for accessing and directing the hidden forces of existence. When these texts reached Christian Europe, they didn't just influence magical practice, they revolutionized it. Entered the Key of Solomon, attributed to the biblical King Solomon himself. This text claimed to contain the complete system he used to command the 72 demons in the construction of his temple. But here's what archaeologists don't want you to know. Recent discoveries suggest Solomon's temple incorporated architectural features that exactly match the magical circles described in Grimoire. Specific geometric proportions, acoustic chambers designed to amplify certain frequencies, symbolic arrangements that mirror the summoning diagrams in the text. The Key of Solomon wasn't preserving religious history. It was preserving literal engineering specifications for technologies that could manipulate consciousness and bend reality to human will. Think about that. One of the most sacred structures in human history was built using techniques preserved in forbidden magical texts. If true, then the holiest of temples was not just a house of God, but a machine. A machine built to tune consciousness, to resonate with the invisible frequencies of existence itself. But Solomon's key was just the beginning. Let's go deeper into the text that changed everything. The Lemegeton, known as the Lesser Key of Solomon. This wasn't a single book, but a complete system. 5 interconnected grimoires, each focusing on a different aspect of reality manipulation. The first section, the Ars Goetia, contained detailed profiles of 72 demons, their specific powers, their hierarchical relationships, the exact methods for summoning and binding them to your will. But here's what modern psychology has discovered. Each demon represents a specific aspect of human consciousness. Baal teaches invisibility, which we now recognize as advanced social manipulation and psychological camouflage. Astaroth reveals hidden knowledge, essentially describing interrogation techniques and information extraction that wouldn't be formally codified until the 20th century. Beleth inspires love, outlining what we now understand as psychological influence and persuasion techniques. The grimoire wasn't teaching people to summon literal demons. It was providing a systematic framework for accessing the darkest, most powerful aspects of human psychology. The elaborate rituals, the protective circles, the months of preparation. These weren't supernatural theater. They were sophisticated, psychological conditioning techniques designed to prepare the practitioner's mind for dangerous internal work. And it worked. Historical records show that practitioners of the Ars Goetia often displayed uncanny abilities in manipulation, persuasion, and psychological control. They became advisors to royalty, influential merchants, powerful clergy. They weren't using supernatural powers. They were using advanced psychological warfare disguised as demon summoning. And doesn't that sound familiar? Today we call it influence, branding, persuasion. Different names, but the same ancient machinery hidden beneath modern masks. Pause for a moment and tell me in the comments. Have you ever felt manipulated without realizing why? Your story might reveal just how alive this ancient technology still is. Now, if you're starting to see the pattern, if you're beginning to understand how these ancient techniques might still be shaping our world, then prepare yourself. Because we're about to explore how Grimoire technology didn't disappear. It evolved, adapted, and now operates in plain sight within the very systems that control modern society. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, because what comes next will take us even deeper into the shadows. And you won't want to miss it. But if this resonates with you, if you can feel the truth in these revelations, take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to wake up. The algorithm doesn't want this information spreading, but together we can break through their barriers and reach those who are ready to see. The Islamic world produced the Picatrix, known in Arabic as Gayat al-Hakim. This wasn't just a grimoire. It was a comprehensive manual for reality manipulation that combined astrology, alchemy, and psychological influence into a unified weapon. The Picatrix taught practitioners how to create talismans that could alter human behavior, timing formulas that maximized psychological impact, architectural principles for designing spaces that would predispose visitors to specific mental states. When this text reached medieval Europe, it became the secret handbook of the nobility. Many of Europe's most influential cathedrals, palaces, and government buildings incorporate design principles taken directly from this Islamic grimoire. The same techniques used for magical influence became the hidden foundation of what we now call environmental psychology, architectural manipulation, and spatial mind control. Let's go deeper into what they don't want you to know. The African continent developed grimoire traditions that surpassed anything in Europe. Ethiopian magical texts, written in the ancient Ge'ez script, contained instructions for consciousness alteration that read like advanced neuroscience textbooks. Specific breathing techniques, body postures, mental exercises designed to induce altered states and access hidden layers of awareness. But here's where the story becomes truly dark. When European slave traders encountered these traditions, they did something evil. They studied them, adapted them, weaponized them. The same methods that African priests used for spiritual communion became tools for psychological breaking and behavioral control. It's one of history's most horrific examples of spiritual technology being perverted for oppression. These African traditions survived in the Americas, evolved into Voodoo, Quimbanda, Santeria. What's remarkable is how the fundamental grimoire techniques adapted and thrived. The same consciousness manipulation methods that appeared in medieval European texts were being practiced in the Caribbean with even greater sophistication than their origins. Let's go deeper into the most terrifying realization. Modern society assumes grimoires were primitive attempts to understand natural phenomena. But when you examine the actual techniques, when you analyze what they really contain, something horrifying emerges. These texts preserve advanced knowledge of psychology, neuroscience, social manipulation that Western academia didn't formally recognize until the 20th century. The preparation rituals found in most grimoire, practitioners required to undergo months of dietary restrictions, sleep deprivation, sensory isolation, repetitive mental conditioning. We now understand these as sophisticated methods for inducing neuroplasticity, altered consciousness, enhanced suggestibility. The Grimoires weren't using primitive superstition. They were employing cutting-edge neuroscience to optimize the brain for reality manipulation. The protective circles, ritual tools, elaborate ceremonies. These weren't supernatural protections. They were psychological anchors, specific visual, auditory, tactile cues designed to maintain mental stability while working with dangerous psychological forces. The same techniques that shamans worldwide have used for millennia to safely navigate the darkest regions of human consciousness. Consider the Abramelin operation, described in the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin, the Mage, an 18-month ritual designed to establish contact with your holy guardian angel and gain absolute command over demonic forces. But when you analyze the actual procedure, something remarkable and terrifying emerges: complete social isolation. Daily meditation regimens, systematic exposure to increasingly disturbing psychological material while maintaining rigid self-discipline. The final phases involve confronting personified representations of your deepest fears, traumas, suppressed impulses. This isn't medieval mysticism. This is intensive psychotherapy designed to integrate unconscious material and develop extraordinary self-mastery. Historical records show that successful practitioners displayed remarkable psychological stability, enhanced creativity, and unusual influence over others. The holy guardian angel is what modern psychology recognizes as a fully integrated personality. The demons are psychological complexes brought under conscious control. The Grimoire preserved advanced therapeutic techniques under religious camouflage. But here's the most disturbing truth. Let's go deeper into how these techniques are being used on you right now. Every time you scroll, every time you click, you are walking through invisible circles drawn by digital sorcerers. You think you chose freely, but the Grimoire chose for you. Many of the consciousness manipulation methods hidden in Grimoire are now employed by modern institutions. Advertising agencies use sigil magic through logo design and subliminal messaging. Political campaigns employ invocation techniques through rally dynamics and mass hypnosis. Social media algorithms use scrying methods, analyzing behavioral patterns to predict and control future action. The difference is terrifying. Traditional Grimoire practitioners understood they were working with dangerous psychological forces, requiring careful preparation and ethical frameworks. Modern practitioners don't even realize they're using magical techniques. They call it marketing, psychology, data science. The protective rituals, the wisdom, the safeguards, all stripped away, leaving only raw manipulation. Renaissance Grimoire reached new levels of sophistication. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy wasn't just compiling techniques. He was developing a comprehensive theory of consciousness-reality interaction. His work described existence as interconnected planes, each governed by specific laws and accessible through specific methods. He outlined detailed correspondences between psychological states, planetary influences, and practical outcomes. What makes Agrippa's work remarkable is how precisely it anticipated quantum physics and consciousness studies. His understanding of reality as information-based, consciousness as a creative force capable of influencing physical events. These concepts wouldn't be formally recognized by science for another 400 years. But Agrippa's work reveals something sinister. The same techniques he codified for spiritual development were being used for political control. Renaissance princes employed court magicians using grimoire methods to influence negotiations, intimidate enemies, maintain power. Consciousness alteration techniques that mystics used for enlightenment became tools for domination. Let's go deeper into the Church's response. The Inquisition didn't target grimoire based on superstition. Many inquisitors were themselves trained in magical techniques. They understood exactly what these texts contained and why they were dangerous. The persecution wasn't religious zealotry. It was accurate threat assessment. The same texts that could produce integrated, enlightened individuals could create manipulative sociopaths. The same techniques that enhanced creativity could fragment identity and implant destructive compulsions. The Church recognized that widespread access to these methods could destabilize civilization itself. The age of exploration brought new syntheses. European grimoire traditions encountered indigenous shamanic practices, African spiritual technologies, Asian meditation systems. The result was hybrid texts combining techniques from multiple traditions into increasingly powerful systems. John Dee's Enochian magic represents the pinnacle of this development. Dee, Queen Elizabeth's advisor and one of Europe's greatest intellects, claimed to receive a complete magical language through angelic communication. The Enochian system included its own alphabet, grammar, pronunciation rules, along with detailed instructions for consciousness alteration and reality manipulation. Modern linguistic analysis reveals Enochian follows consistent grammatical structures and contains complex philosophical concepts encoded in its syntax. Whether received from non-human intelligences or representing extraordinary creative achievement, it demonstrates the sophistication grimoire traditions had reached. But Dee's work reveals the political applications. He simultaneously served as intelligence agent for the English crown, using magical practices for espionage and foreign influence operations. The same techniques for angelic communication were employed for information gathering and psychological warfare. Let's go deeper into New Orleans Voodoo. This represents sophisticated synthesis of West African spiritual practices, Catholic ritual, indigenous shamanism, and European grimoire traditions. Practitioners weren't just blending religions, they were creating new consciousness manipulation technologies. Marie Laveau and other famous practitioners weren't just spiritual leaders. They were skilled applied psychologists using traditional magical techniques for counseling, conflict resolution, community healing. They understood ritual as trauma processing, symbolism as psychological reframing, ceremony as social programming. But they also preserved the darker applications. The same methods that healed psychological wounds could create them. The same rituals that strengthened communities could destroy them. New Orleans Voodoo maintained both aspects, creating complete systems for consciousness work in all dimensions. The 19th century Golden Dawn attempted to systematize grimoire traditions for modern practitioners. They created structured curricula, ethical guidelines, new techniques incorporating contemporary psychology and science. But they also revealed new dangers. As magical methods became more accessible, They attracted individuals seeking power without wisdom. Traditional screening and gradual training was replaced by rapid, less discriminating methods. The result was practitioners possessing magical techniques without the ethical frameworks traditional cultures had developed. This created magical materialism, using spiritual methods purely for material gain, without regard for psychological or social consequences. Let's go deeper into the most horrifying development. The 20th century saw grimoire techniques applied on mass scales. Industrial psychology, mass media, global communication created unprecedented opportunities for consciousness manipulation. Individual practices became tools for population control. Modern advertising employs sigil magic through brand recognition and subliminal programming. Political systems use invocation through mass rallies and media manipulation. Corporate culture uses ritual through team building and organizational ceremonies. Entertainment industries use scrying through market research and behavioral prediction. Most practitioners don't recognize they're using magical techniques, and they certainly don't employ traditional safeguards. We're experiencing what traditional practitioners would call widespread spiritual contamination. Psychological instability, social manipulation, ethical corruption, characterizing contemporary culture. But here's the crucial understanding. Grimoires themselves aren't evil. They're sophisticated consciousness technologies requiring proper training, ethical frameworks, ongoing supervision. The danger comes from misuse by individuals who don't understand what they're actually manipulating. Traditional cultures developed elaborate systems for practitioner training, candidate screening, ongoing guidance, and support. They understood consciousness work as inherently dangerous, requiring the same preparation and supervision we associate with medical or psychological training. Contemporary culture abandoned these safeguards while continuing to employ the techniques. We live in a world where grimoire technology operates constantly, but the wisdom making its use safe has been forgotten or discarded. Let's go deeper into why this matters now more than ever. Understanding grimoire history is crucial because these texts preserve not just manipulation techniques, but accumulated wisdom from centuries of practitioners who learned through experimentation how to work safely with the deepest levels of human consciousness. The real secret isn't supernatural power. It's sophisticated understanding of consciousness mechanics and systematic development of human potential. This knowledge is more relevant today than ever, as we live in an age where consciousness alteration operates constantly but often without wisdom or restraint. The future of grimoire traditions lies not in returning to medieval practices, but in understanding the psychological and social technologies these texts preserve and integrating them with contemporary knowledge and ethical frameworks. Ancient practitioners weren't primitive people trying to control supernatural forces. They were sophisticated researchers working with consciousness, fundamentals, and developing technologies we're only beginning to understand. Their work deserves study and application with the same rigor we bring to any powerful technology, because that's exactly what grimoires are. Powerful consciousness technologies that can create extraordinary benefits or devastating harm depending on their use. The choice is ours. We can continue employing these techniques unconsciously without safeguards, or we can learn from traditional wisdom and develop contemporary approaches honoring both power and responsibility. The grimoires remain active, still teaching those who approach with proper preparation and respect. The question isn't whether their techniques work. The question is whether we're wise enough to use them responsibly. If you've journeyed this far, if you felt the truth resonating in these revelations, you've already begun understanding something most people never grasp. The boundary between ancient wisdom and modern knowledge isn't clear. The same forces medieval magicians worked with through elaborate rituals remain active today, operating through different channels with different names. The veil between worlds hasn't disappeared. It's been digitized, commercialized, weaponized. But for those who know how to look, for those who understand the signs, the old powers still move beneath the surface of our seemingly rational world. And maybe, just maybe, the fact that you're still listening means you were meant to see through the veil. Not everyone makes it this far. Few ever do. Share your thoughts about this hidden history in the comments. Have you recognized grimoire influences in contemporary culture that I didn't mention? What questions do you have about these ancient consciousness technologies? And if you're ready to dive deeper into the knowledge that shapes our reality from the shadows, if you can handle what lies beyond the veil, write "the veil is lifting" in the comments. I read every single one, and there are deeper mysteries yet to explore together. The algorithm may try to suppress this knowledge, but truth has a way of finding those who are ready to receive it. Share this with someone who still believes history is just what they were taught in school, and watch how quickly their perspective begins to crack. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and remember, the real magic was never in the books themselves, but in understanding the forces they taught us to recognize and direct.